Tonight, the U.S. is still not able to call the three objects shot down by the United States over the course of 3 days anything but objects. National Security Council spokesperson Don Kirby says one leading explanation is that the objects shot down over Alaska, Canada, and Michigan over the weekend were tied to some commercial yet benign purpose. But this is not satisfying White House critics who are demanding more answers.
I don't think they're being transparent enough, and I think that's got to change.
All right, meanwhile, an out-front investigation tonight from our Selena Wang in Beijing showed 6 Chinese entities that produce Chinese spy balloons and are blacklisted by the United States, openly talking about, their words, killer military capabilities of their products. And then one of them, I mean, this is really incredible. I'll just show you. This was one of their founders had put the screen up in a presentation and points to the balloon and says, oh, look, there's the United States. There's a fly right over. So there you have it. Out front now, astrophysicist Neil deGrasse Tyson. He is also the author of Starry Messenger, Cosmic Perspectives on Civilization, and many other books that I hope people will get. Okay, but so Neil, let's just start here with this. They're bragging about flying over the U.S. What's your reaction as you hear this whole story and have watched this unfold?
By the way, if you lift balloons high enough from the west of the United States, that's what they will do, because these are the prevailing jet streams that move a floating object circulating around the Earth. So to say they're like targeting the U.S., the wind does that for free. So just want to put that out there.
Yeah, but that's why they're so cheap, right? The wind does the propulsion.
Yeah, the wind is your jet stream in this. And so not only that, by the way, just for context, 1,000 or so weather balloons are launched every day around the world. Yeah. And loaded with the helium, they get very high, they get very large, and they float. The way a drop of oil at the bottom of a water will float to the top slowly, but it'll get there, and then when it gets there, it kind of hovers there, and it'll move wherever the water currents will take it. So by analogy, I'm just saying this is not a new phenomenon that you might find balloons in the air. The fact that
Sorry, yeah.
No, just A. B, that first balloon, the one that we are certain was from China, it was very large.
3 buses
or something like that in length. And just the idea that we should feel threatened by something that is large and slow moving, that you can pop. I don't know. I don't know. I'm more casual about this.
You make me feel better.
Maybe I should be.
You make me feel better because John Bolton was on. Ambassador John Bolton earlier was on.
I caught that interview.
Use a nuclear, use it as a nuclear, delivery system. So but I guess the separate part from this is the U.S.-China space race. I know here we're talking near space, right? We're sort of in that in the middle.
Who's going to control the new high ground?
Right.
Yeah.
And so the Space Force Lieutenant General of the U.S., Nina Armango, said recently, I think it's entirely possible they could catch up and surpass us. Absolutely. Talking about China. And they've got their own space station now, Tiangong, because we didn't work with them on the ISS. They went and did their own.
It's not that we didn't work with them. We didn't invite them.
We invite them. They went and did it themselves.
We kicked them out of the sandbox. They built their own sandbox. So what did you expect them to do?
The NASA Administrator Bill Nelson says China could beat the U.S. to the moon. I mean, we went once, but then we didn't go for 30 years. So,
by the way, all this whining, I'm going to call it whining because I feel strongly about this. Had we continued onto the moon and stayed on the moon and onto Mars, we wouldn't be like looking over our shoulder now, wondering who's going to catch up with us. We would have stayed ahead of the world. So to sit back, kick up our feet for 5 decades, and then all of a sudden say, oh, let's build Artemis and go back to the moon. Well, what's motivating you? Oh, China says they want to go back to the moon. So let's be honest with ourselves that we're not being proactive for the high ground, we're being reactive.
And on top of that, just so people understand, you're talking about unlimited resources of minerals.
Oh, yeah,
and everything up there. I mean, it's not just for the bragging rights, right? That's all there. Never mind the military aspect, the hypersonic missiles and everything else.
But space basically has unlimited resources. Everything that's rare on Earth is common in space. Rare earth metals, even though they're just rare in location, they're not really rare in abundance. But you look at things that we have fought wars over: access to energy, minerals, water, and there's no end of that in space. So one of my dreams is that we turn space into our backyard. Earth turns space into its backyard, and upon doing so, it would remove an entire category of why we have ever fought wars, which is battling over access to limited resources.
Right.
So I think space might be the best hope for peace in the future of civilization.
And of course, now it looks like we're fighting over it. So now, in the context of these objects, okay, 3 more objects are shot down. And as you point out, there's a lot of objects out there. But, you know, and look, I look at a map of the world and I see all the satellites up there, and it's very terrifying because you're like, oh my God, if those started raining down, we'd all be gone. But now, you know, this whole concept of extraterrestrial came up, right? And there had been congressional hearings about this, about UFOs, and now we find out most of them were Chinese spy balloons or weather balloons or whatever. But in the broader conversation here, does this change your view at all of the nature of extraterrestrial life?
No, not really, because we have greater capacity. I've used this phrase before, and I mean it genuinely. Given the number of smartphones in the world today, 6 billion, we are unwittingly crowdsourcing any possible alien invasion because everyone could take high-resolution video of it, post it instantly, and it would be viral. At least as viral as kittens jumping from the table.
Oh, no, nothing is viral.
Okay. It would be
anything to do with cats, I think
it would be
is...
Okay, then after cats, then aliens invading Earth, okay? So I think I'd like it when people need an excuse to look up. Right, look up. Mm-hmm. And by the way, the government doesn't want you to not look up if a billion, hundreds of millions of people look up and see things that could harm us. I want the military to investigate this, but by all means. Right. And so it's just odd that we have expensive planes and expensive missiles to pop balloons. That's a little odd to me, but fine. Protect my airspace. Now, do I think these are visiting aliens? It would be odd if they were. Aliens moving across the galaxy and then dropping some balloons? Oh, what alien would do that? I don't want to meet those aliens. I don't want the low-tech aliens.
Well, it's high tech to think that you could come in and then launch a balloon.
I'm disappointed. No, yes, we don't know what they are. So technically they are UF. The first 3, U, unidentified, flying object. The government called them UAPs. They were just rebranding.
Oh, they were trying to rebrand because it seems silly.
Don't try to fool us.
Before you leave, the stunning images from the James Webb. What's your favorite so far?
Oh, I'd say the Carina Nebula. Oh my gosh, this is like I just have to bask in the majesty of that image. This is a gas cloud, a ridge of gas clouds, and the James Webb Space Telescope, because it uses infrared light. Infrared can penetrate into gas clouds where you bear witness to the birth of stars, stellar nurseries. Not only the birth of stars, but the birth of planets. And that's just in front of our nose. Wow. And it does that in addition to looking at the birth of galaxies in the early universe. It's a badass telescope. Just thought.
And if it finds a balloon, then they're a lot more high tech than you thought.
Call me if it finds a balloon.